Hi, friend, and welcome to CCM Discovery. As you know, this is your go to spot for uncovering today's freshest voices in Christian music, inspiring authors, comedians, movers, and shakers that are shaping the industry, writers, screenplay writers. We're also going to rediscover the classic artists who built the foundation of contemporary Christian music as we know it today. I'm your host, Roger St. James, former contemporary Christian music radio DJ, here to guide you through the stories, sounds, and the people behind the music and the art that you love. Whether you're a longtime fan or just starting your journey, get ready to dive deep into the heart's spirit and inspirational voices of contemporary Christian music and media. So let's discover together. And today, we actually have a gentleman who checks every single box we talked about, except, I think, singer. But we'll find out about that. He's an author, he's a screenplay, he's a pastor, he's a actor. So please welcome Thor Ramsey.
Thanks for having me. Don't I assume I clicked the check classic box too.
We're gonna have to check that one off too. Hang on, let me check off that one too. There we go.
I have people in their 20s. Well, now they're in their 30s, but 20s and 30s. I have people coming to me, not all the time, but a couple times a year. I have them come up to me. They recognize me somewhere and go, "I used to watch you when I was a kid."
Well, that makes sense
for the Bananas show.
Yeah, I was going to say you've done so much. I mean, and you're still a young man, and you have so much more to do.
And I'm so old. Oh yeah.
Like you said, you just touched on you hosted Bananas. What was that? What was that experience like for those kids to keep coming back?
Well, Bananas that was a family comedy program, and we did 4 seasons, but I think they only ended up airing 3 seasons. But that was a great experience. Flew into Columbus, Ohio I think we flew in on Mondays and we filmed it on Tuesdays, and then I flew home on Wednesdays, and got a lot of I got some production experience, got a lot of points from the Hilton they put us up at. So we got points for that, a lot of flying points. So it was a great experience all around. I'm just sorry we didn't finish that 4th, because we're supposed to shoot 5 seasons. And then I think what happened was, there's a couple things I think happened, but one of them was the economy tanked. It was one of them. So, but I think the other one was an internal issue that we don't need. I'll put that in my book, Adventures in Christian Entertainment.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, is there like some kind of special DVD box set we can get with the missing two seasons?
Yeah, no, they should do that, but because I almost like about a year ago, I threw around I always throw around ideas for podcasts, every now and then, and I thought having a Bananas podcast would be fun, and then have on all the comedians that were on the Bananas series and have them on the podcast and show a clip. But I tried to contact the people that have the rights to Bananas, because I didn't want to do it without their rights, but couldn't get them to respond. I guess there was I think one of the comedians sued the production company for royalties or something, and that, buddy. So don't sue people, friends.
No, get the lawyers out of the way.
Yeah,
lawyers are the scourge of American politics. But of course, now we'll talk about something else you did. Thou Shalt Laugh, the comedy movies Thou Shalt Laugh. You did those for quite a while as well.
At least
3,
we did,
right?
5. Well, there were 5 of them. I was on 3 of them. I was supposed to be on 4 of them, and then I had a gig booked, and they would not let me out of it because the dates conflicted, and I could have just left them high and dry. So I was like, "Look, I'm done. I'm not doing this gig." But I was under the conviction at the time, let your yes be yes, your no be no. So I'm like, since they wouldn't let me out of it, I couldn't do it. So I suggested my friend Leland Clausen, and he did Thou Shalt Laugh. I think that was the 5th one. So I did 1 through 3, and then 4 I didn't do, and then 5 I was supposed to do and wasn't able to. But those were some of the best experiences ever doing comedy, because we had that very first one, Thou Shalt Laugh number 1 and number 2, I believe, were both filmed at a gigantic church out here in Southern California that seated 5,000 people, and it was packed. So it was like closest you got to doing gigantic concert
And that's what
comedy
I
experience.
as I dove in when you agreed to do the show and I started diving in, I was just blown away by how much you've actually done. I mean, we've talked about the Thou Shall Laugh.
Now let's talk about how much of that was successful. Now,
Well,
but yeah, you just keep throwing
that's
stuff.
a fair comment.
Keep throwing stuff at the wall. No, you keep throwing stuff at the wall.
But I mean, you've
Laugh.
written one.
I'm going to take that back because I was saying that as a joke, but Thou Shalt Laugh was actually at the time. I don't know if it still holds this record, but at the time it was the best selling comedy DVD of all time in the Christian market.
Oh, so you stumped on Mike Warnke, and
Yeah,
that's awesome. So that
yeah, so, yeah. So that was the fame there.
And in addition to that, you've also written, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 books, and you mentioned that you're working on
Yeah,
another one.
yeah, yeah. So I moved into writing. I was writing basically kind of my first books were like Christian humor books to a degree. I mean, they were informative, trying to be humorous at the same time. And then I moved into writing novels. So I've written 2 novels now. I should have had them out here so I could hold them up. So, but I think I've got them right here.
Yeah.
Hold on. There we go. All right. I should have been more prepared.
Oh no, this is
so this is my latest. This is The Honest Atheist.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that one. I'm really enjoying that one.
Yeah. And then my first was called The End Times Comedy Show, which is about a stand. Well, they're both. Yeah, actually, they're both the same narrator, so they're both the same. Oddly enough, the narrator is a stand-up comedian. So
Go figure.
Go figure.
Where did you get that idea, Thor?
So, yeah, I just pulled it out. Yeah, out of nowhere.
Because I'm reading The Honest Atheist right now, and it's taking me longer to read it than I expected. Because first of all, it's the way it's written. I feel like I'm sitting in a room with the people having the conversation, and it makes me laugh out loud several times already. But what's slowing me down is I have to keep getting my pen out to write down. Oh, I want to read that book. Oh, I want to learn more about this person. I mean, there's so much.
Oh, okay.
There's so much in that the story itself is great. It's funny. It's educational. But you're also giving me so many other places to go and dive into, and I appreciate. That's awesome.
Well, that's good. I didn't. Oh, that's good. That's good. It does take a darker turn. I don't know if you got to that point yet. What
well,
where are you at in the novel?
If we're talking about when we find out about the girlfriend from the wedding.
No. Once they get to the abandoned rail car.
Oh no, haven't
gotten to that place.
I haven't gotten that far yet. I just
okay,
we just left.
When you get to the abandoned rail car,
yeah.
It's a little bit different. Like, so the End Times Comedy Show is a satire, and it kind of maintains the same. It takes twists and turns, of course, but it doesn't go to a dark place. Whereas this is almost starts off like, well, there's movies that do that. They start off like fun and it seems like it's going to be a comedy, and then all of a sudden, really dark turn. And that's what The Honest Atheist does.
Yeah, when it got to the part, I don't want to give it away, but when it got to the part where what I was talking about, I was kind of like, wait, what just happened here?
Yeah, it's not the wedding though. The wedding is still humorous.
Yeah, it's after after the wedding when
it's after
when
wedding.
He calls
Yeah.
when he calls the narrator. Yeah, so I'm looking. I got to tell people, go on Thor's website. We're going to be displaying it on the bottom of the screen here during the entire show. Get these.
Well,
books.
Amazon's the best place to get these. Is Amazon.
Actually, that's where I did get. I got mine from Amazon.
Yeah.
So
so you can either get the paperback or you can get the Kindle version. There's actually a hardback version, but it's a little disappointing, to be honest, because it's basically just the paperback version that's hard. Hardbacks used to have that. They used to take the paper and wrap it around them and everything. They'd have to. But I think they still do that. But I think a lot of publishing companies now are just making them hard.
Yeah,
It's
that is not as fun. You got to get that cover. You got to
that's
get that
exactly it.
cover.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
Back in
kind of a
back in the days,
shame.
we're aging ourselves a little bit there, Thor, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
we are.
And in addition to everything you've done here, and we will talk more about your entertainment side, but you're also a pastor.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I am. I am. I don't advertise that in the comedy world, but yeah, I am actually a pastor. So I did stand up for, gosh, over 25, 30 years. I still do events occasionally. Like I just did this last summer. It was 2025. I did the Life Fest, and that was a blast. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, every Sunday I have to be back in time for Sunday service because I have a small church. We're basically a church plant, and it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. We were a church plant, and then we were in a grade school somewhere, and COVID hit, and it just derailed us, of course. And so after COVID, it took us 2 years basically just to get to the place where we could relaunch. And we relaunched, a year ago, Easter. So we're basically
Great.
2.0 of what we were, but that's called Center Church. People can actually, if they want to, but they can go.
Let's talk about it.
We can go. That's centerchurch.life is our website. So if they want to know about us, that's if you're out here in the Southern California area near Temecula or Canyon Lake, come visit us. We're doing lots of social media right now. So centerchurch.life is that. You can hear the sermons and stuff there. So, and I'm not funny in my sermons, just to let you guys know. If you a comedian who's preaching, I don't even try to be. I don't prepare funny for the sermon. It's if it comes naturally during the sermon, I let it go, but I don't prepare funny for the sermon.
No, and that allows people to see another side of you, because we see you on the big screen, we see you on the YouTube, we see you on Facebook, and then get to see you preaching the Word of God. And it's I think what I've really learned from doing the show is that people have so many dimensions, and to get to see all that and to hear the stories. Like, I'll ask you a real simple question: what brought you to the faith?
What brought me to the faith? That's a simple question.
Well,
It might be a
simple
question.
for me, Thor. It's very simple for me to ask.
The simple question is not answer. I grew up in a time where cultural Christianity still kind of dominated society to a degree. So we were still Christmas and Easter people. Though I'd never heard of the resurrection the entire time I was growing up. We'd go to church and on a holiday, and my mother would go, "That was nice." And we'd go for a few weeks and we're off and wouldn't go until the next big holiday, which was primarily Christmas and Easter. Go to Vacation Bible School or denomination. I won't call them out, but I never heard the gospel. Like I never heard Jesus died for your sins and rose again I didn't know what the resurrection was until I was a freshman in college. And I'm like, he did what? I got to call my old pastor. You know what this guy did? You might want to mention that once. That seems key. So my first roommate in college was a Christian. And by the time I got to college, I didn't believe in morality. I didn't believe that, anybody could tell me what was right or wrong. I was a budding nihilist is how I pronounce it. But I was a budding nihilist, which basically means there's no meaning to life. But I wasn't an atheist yet. But the one belief I did grab onto was, human beings can't tell me what to do. And I thought all religion was just some human beings, philosophy, or they started their religion. Like, Judaism was Moses's rules. Religion was just rules is how I viewed it. And so, Judaism was Moses's rules. Islam was Muhammad's rules. Christianity was Jesus's rules. Buddhism was Buddha's rules. So that's just kind of how I viewed everything. And but my first roommate in college was a Christian, and started talking to me about the gospel. And this was the first time, because the one thing I was convinced of is that, and this is maybe sounds odd to people, but the thing that sparked my interest in the gospel, in hearing about Christ, was when my roommate and a couple of his friends were having a big discussion with me. And one of them asked me, he says, what do you think the greatest problem with humanity? And it was a big college discussion, so we're using big college words. So I said narcissism, which just means extreme self-centeredness, because all my relationships in high school taught me that. I just believed people were just completely self-centered at core, and I thought that was the problem individually, and then it just expanded, and that's what made the problems in the community, and then the city, and then the state, and then the country, and then the world, and it just expanded out. But I thought at core that was the problem with everything. And he said, I'd agree with you, but I'd use a different word for it. He goes, I'd call it sin. And so sin was the sin issue of humanity was the first thing that sparked my interest, because you didn't have to convince me that, I was not, I think the majority of people feel like humanity is basically good, and I did not. I had a pessimistic view of humanity. I didn't believe people were good at their core. I believed that they were ultimately self-centered at core, not realizing that self-centeredness is just the biblical view of what sin is. Just makes us self-centered and selfish and etc. So that sparked my interest. Like, well, what's the Christian answer to that problem? That's really what the gospel is. And so from there, I just, this was Campus Crusade for Christ back when they were called that. I think they're called Cru now. And I don't know how well they're doing sticking to the tenets of biblical Christianity at this point. But my friend gave me The Four Spiritual Laws by Bill Bright. And, even though it's a very simple version of the gospel, it made complete sense to me. And I was, and it was convicting. People criticize the Four Spiritual Laws because they don't think it's enough of a robust presentation of the gospel. But I got the idea. I knew that, I knew what this, they had the bridge analogy, man on one side, God on the other, sin separates us. But I knew it was down the pit of the bridge. I understood that. I don't even know if they said it in the Four Spiritual Laws, but I got it.
Yep.
The implication was there for me anyway. And so, it took me about a week or so, but after another, because I used to drive home every weekend. I lived about 3 hours from, my college was about 3 hours from home. And so I used to drive home on the weekend so I could fight with my girlfriend. And so we'd fight and I'd drive back. And one weekend we had another bad fight. And so I drove back early, because I used to drive back late on Sunday nights, but I came back early and I forgot, like, I was a Bible study in our dorm room. And I was like, well, whatever. I'm back now. So it was my room too. So I went in, and he was sitting there with two other guys, and they were like staring at a chair with an old-fashioned tape recorder on it. And they were listening to a cassette tape of Josh McDowell on Evidences for the Resurrection. And so I'm like, well, I'm here. I'll listen to it. And it was like, and I think that was the first time I've heard Josh McDowell speak. But the guy, God used him in a huge way and convinced me of the truth of the resurrection. And I went and up in my top bunk in my dorm room and read the Four Spiritual Laws and prayed the little prayer at the end. And I think that was October 11th of whatever year that was. But that's basically how I came to faith. Now, how I stayed into faith is a whole nother story. But that's how I came to faith.
I'm just fascinated that you actually went to college and learned about Christianity.
Well, it wasn't through the college. It was just somebody there who happened to be a Christian. So
yeah, and then you said how you stayed in the faith. And was comedy always something that interested you? And it just kind of
when I was
together?
I did my very first stand-up. I could say performance. My junior year of high school, because even then I had got a notebook, and I started writing. When I had no training in how to write jokes, but I started writing jokes. I started writing things in the notebook. Once there's a couple I don't use them in my stand-up bit, but I've used them other places. Like one of the things I wrote was, God bless those who mean well, which I thought was kind of a pithy little line, and ended up using it at times. But I wrote that when I was in high school. But I wrote this whole bit. Now, I was not a Christian, but I wrote this whole bit. I remember the premise of the bit. I don't remember the bit itself, but I believe it was our history teacher and he had to step out of the class for a few minutes, and he made me like almost as a joke, because um, I was not a student council type student, and almost like a joke, he put me in charge of the class and to keep it in order. And so when he left, I'm like, I had a notebook, and they were like, so what are we going to do? They were like giving me a hard time. Like, he's going to be gone for 5 minutes. What are you going to do? I'm like, well, I stood up in front of the class, and I did that comedy bit, and I killed. It was great. So that was the first time I performed stand up. But because even back then, it's like I was thinking when I graduated, one of my thoughts was I had applied to a school out here in Southern California, because the only comedy club I'd heard of at that time, this is before the comedy boom, was the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. That's the only place I knew that you could actually perform stand-up live in the country that I'd ever heard of, and of course our what do you call those people in high school that you go and talk to you about your future?
The guidance counselors.
Guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how effective they were.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what they are.
Yeah,
but
somebody tell
the guidance.
Yeah, somebody who's making like $12 an hour telling me how to find a good job.
Yeah, and as I remember talking, I took some sort of they had you to take. I don't know if it was like a personality test or something we had to fill out, and it told you what kind of career you were geared towards. And mine was director. And of course, he was like, I don't know what to do with that. He didn't even tell me. He's like, there's such a thing as film school. Otherwise, I might have gone to film school. Because like, I didn't know you could study film in college, but he didn't either, apparently, because all he said was like, I guess you could just move to LA. That's, you could do that. But my plan at the time, and I had a girlfriend I was fighting with all the time. She came to me. I think this was I don't know if it was my junior year or senior year, but we dated about a year, our junior and senior year. So it was in between there. But she came to me one night. She goes, I dreamt last night you were on the Tonight Show. And she goes, you had a good set. so after I got I didn't pursue stand-up until after college, though. So I figured, well, if you're not going to follow your own dreams, you might as well follow somebody else's. So I eventually found my way to a comedy club stage.
And
contest. I did a contest.
Oh, it was. So you just kind of went up there and say, let's see what happens.
Well, the comedy boom had because my plan initially was there was a Catholic, I think it was a Catholic university out here in Southern California, and the only reason I chose it is because it was near LA, which is where the Comedy Store was. So these are the decision process I'm going through. But once I became a Christian, I was afraid of going to a Catholic university because I thought it was, I had the misconception as someone who didn't grow up in a Christian home. My assumption was Catholic schools or universities like Wheaton College that, advertise themselves as Christian universities, I assumed they would be really, demanding of your spirituality. So I thought they would reject me because I wasn't a mature enough Christian. And so I ended up, because I had applied to Wheaton too. And, I take that back. I had the application, but I was afraid to send it in because I was afraid of being rejected. So a lot of my decisions were based upon fear of what could happen. And I would never take that step and going, oh man, that's such a horrible, you look back now going, it's just a horrible mindset to have, to not take a chance because of fear. And I always thought to myself, and this was my own reasoning, was had I had a more secure home environment, I felt like I could have done anything, because you have that to fall back on.
The foundation.
Like if you feel like, you have this really stable home life with your mom and your dad, and you feel like, well, I can go out and try, because if it fails, I can come back home and I've got the stability to come back to. And I didn't feel like I had that stability to come back to. So wherever I was going, that's where I was going, is what it felt like. So I was just a little too insecure to just come out to California where I didn't know anybody. So I stayed in Nebraska for a year, and then eventually transferred Texas Christian University, again, naively. not knowing they're really just Christian in name. But anyway, that's where I went to college, and then eventually found my way. After I had a career, and like, this is horrible. It's time to just follow your dream. So that's when I, found a flyer, comedy contest, entered it, and never looked back. Within a year, I was working full time.
Oh man, that's when you finally listen to what God's telling you to do, even though you might not hear it directly. And in your case, it came from your argumentative girlfriend, but it was there, and you listened to it, and
Right.
and God put His hand on your shoulder, and has been guiding you ever since. So it
Yeah.
went from what was the order between the stand up comedy, the movie writing, the books, the TV writing?
Well,
Did it all just
initially,
kind of happen at once?
no. When I was in high school, I had a great English teacher. I know I saved it. I saved a paper for our senior. Instead of doing a final for our English class, she allowed us to choose some project we wanted to do that was English related. And so I decided to write a short story, because I was writing, she made us write a lot during her class. And I had her 2 years in a row. I had her for my junior year and my senior year. And she was just such a great teacher, teaching us the mechanic. Really what happened was, our junior year, she gave us a test, and to find out where we were grammatically speaking. And it was so bad. She's like, okay, we're just going to spend the entire year on grammar. And so she had us diagramming sentences and doing a lot of essays and, writing all kinds of stuff. And then she did that our senior year too. We had to do a term paper on some subject, and, but I did a short story for my final, and she just really wrote some. I know I saved it. I got it around somewhere, because I wanted to frame it but I can't find it now. I hid it away so well. I'm in the garage, and as you can say, I packed it away so well, I can't find it. But she was so encouraging. Just said, keep writing. One day you'll be published. And so originally, I wanted to be a writer. I discovered Ernest Hemingway and J.D. Salinger at some point. Was not a reader before that, but just became a reader of fiction and loved literature. And then so my goal was I was going to go to college, study literature, and be a writer. But I always had stand up in the back of my mind too. So stand up was always there. But I think when I became a Christian, it kind of curbed that for a while, because again, I had some misconceptions when I started my Christian walk, because it was still during kind of a it was kind of, I got influenced by that wing of Christianity of good girls don't smoke. How's that? You remember that old saying that good girls don't smoke, chew, or whatever it is. Don't go with girls who smoke or chew, or I don't. There's a saying. There's a little rhyme. It's supposed to be funny, but I don't remember what it is. But it was that mentality of you should don't ever walk into a bar. And I couldn't even. Or it's like, if a restaurant served alcohol, I struggled.
Yeah.
So that was my mentality. So that was the early influence. So doing stand-up comedy in places that sold alcoholic beverages was unthinkable to me at the
Yeah.
time.
Why would you go to a place where Jesus needs to be represented, right? Stay safe.
Yeah, there you go. Why would you hang around pagans, whores, lepers, and Canadians? Why do that? People need the gospel. Don't stay away from them, whatever you do. But it was a process eventually, and because I did start in clubs eventually. Once I, started stand-up, I started in clubs, which I don't regret ever doing clubs, because there's stage time was so. I mean, you're performing like 7 to 9 shows a week, so you're just performing nonstop. So it's really a great way to develop. And then once you enter in the Christian market, you're only performing at the most, if you're really booked, 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday. Now there was a period of my comedy career in the Christian market where I did these, I forget what they called them. I think it was called Christ in Youth, but they were high school events that met on college campuses. But that summer, that was when I really hit what you call, I'd never experienced this before, but I experienced burnout when it came to traveling because I was traveling like Monday, Tuesday, and then and those were all different places. So I'd fly somewhere Monday, fly somewhere Tuesday, fly somewhere Wednesday, and then I'd have my regular events on Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
So I was flying, like you're flying so much, you wake up, you don't know if you're at home or in a hotel room. And it just got to the point, and that was the most events I'd ever did in a year was that particular year. And it was great until the end of that summer. And I was like, man, I don't want to get on another plane.
Yeah.
It was a first, because I used to love to fly, because you flew so much, you got the perks. This is back, I don't know if airlines way anymore, as I don't fly as much anymore, but it used to be if you stuck to an airline, they give you all these perks. And so if you're a frequent flyer, most first class when you just bought a coach ticket. So, I was flying first class all the time just because I flew so much, and it was a pleasant, experience. But man, I just got to the place. I'm like, I don't want to get on another. Even now, I booked something like, oh, it means I have to fly. So, but that's the danger of burnout in some. Now, I didn't never experience burnout with stand up itself, but I did experience with the traveling aspect. So I was like, man, I wish that Star Trek technology would catch up so we could just like, yep, and then just appear on stage. When they introduce you, like that's when you appear on stage.
That would be perfect. Gotta love that transporter theory.
Yeah, the transporter. Exactly.
But that kind of leads me into something I really want to mention to you. I am a big fan of your movie Church People, and when you were just
good,
and it's to the point where my oldest son Tyler, when he'll walk in and I'm watching a movie, he'll look at me and go, "Okay, Dad, which is it? I Can Only Imagine or Church People?" Yeah, so I have Church People like practically on a loop. But when you mentioned the burnout, that part, did you use your experience for that character in Church People, because he was dealing with that?
A little bit. I mean, there's always as much as you fictionalize things, there's always an aspect of your real life that's fictionalized, or someone else's life. You're really borrowing from real life in anything you write because you want to sell a reality. And so if you're writing about, if you're writing a police drama or something, then you have to, and you're not a cop. I don't know why you have to at least talk to a police officer to, you have to at least sell the reality. And you can only do that if you talk to people or interview people or have that experience, or pull from your experience, or pull from the experience of others, so it sells the reality. Even if you're writing, which Church People was a satirical comedy, which, boy, that was a fight to keep it a comedy.
Oh, really?
When I first wrote it, and I probably went through 30 drafts of, there's probably three different movies you can make from all the drafts I did of Church People that are just a little different. Now, the thing that hinged it eventually was the main line about, the senior pastor wanted to have an actual crucifixion on Good Friday, and he wanted the youth pastor to be the one crucified, which was the big idea that sold it. But when we first got the interest in it, they loved it in terms of like, we love that it's outside the box and we want to do something outside the box. And then once we actually got it funded, all of a sudden it became a fight to keep it outside. Now everyone wanted to put it back in the box. So it's like, let's make it safer. Let's make it, and it was like, well, when you look at the market, there was a movie, I won't mention it, that came out right before Church People, and it did not do well. I don't know if it's a bad movie. I've never seen it, but it was supposed to be a comedy, but it didn't do well. And so that hurt our distribution deal, actually. So it's like, had that movie done great, Church People would have been seen by more people. But so this is how the industry works, though. It's like, if If a movie does well and it's in the same genre, even the same idea as your movie, you should never get upset about that because, it's that whole the rising tide lifts all ship scenario where if a movie does well, then they're like, because Hollywood is a copycat industry, and even in the Christian market, it's not Hollywood, but it follows the same principles, unfortunately, as the industry, the Hollywood industry, which is if something does well, we want 10 more of those until they tank, and then but it's that's something new that someone's doing that generally sparks the copycat thing, and so I was relatively happy with how Church People turned out. It wasn't the movie, but because filmmaking is a community process, you get a lot of people involved, and so it was a fight to keep it near the original vision as possible. Because one of the things that happened is Church People was originally called Youth Group, and it was about a youth pastor in crisis, same premise, same situation with the love interest and everything, but it wasn't really a romantic comedy. It was just about a youth pastor in crisis, and it had like 4 or 5 of the youth characters, and it had their subplots throughout. And so then they all culminated in that climax at the cross there, and I like that version better actually, because at the time I'm like, I thought it was better marketing too, because I'm like, youth group, who takes a group of kids to see a movie other than a youth pastor?
Right. No, no.
I mean, and
It would
and
work.
my model at the time, think Napoleon Dynamite became such a hit but it was a hit among youth groups because the youth pastors want to introduce their kids to something that they've never seen before. And so they take a group of kids to see in Dynamite. And so that helped it in terms of it becoming a box office. And so that was my thinking, is like, man, if we call it youth group and youth pastors, if we make a good movie and youth pastors like it, they'll show it to their youth or bring their youth to see it. And I didn't feel like Church People had that same marketing appeal, but that was one of the things that was done to it. It went from being youth group, and then it was just one of those things where you're doing rewrite after rewrite, and they're like, let's get rid of the youth. And so we only really had one youth that we dealt with. One subplot stayed, and the other subplots fell by the wayside. And so, but I mean, all that to say, I'm still relatively happy with it. I wish it would, because I felt like one of the pressures I had as a writer was to make it a romantic. Whereas I didn't want this. I didn't want the romance to be the focus, and I don't really think it was even in the final version. But I would have gotten rid of some of the romantic comedy aspects of it, because that's the only thing that, when I watch it myself now, the only place I cringe is that initial meeting with my character and the love interest, and that in the office there, that's the scene that makes me cringe now. But other than that, I stand by it, and I think it turned out pretty well.
No, I enjoy it. Like I said, I've watched it several times, and I enjoy it every time. And at some point, when you and I do actually meet in person, I'm going to have to ask you to autograph a beach ball for me. And
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
and the folks are going to have to watch that movie.
We still had a couple of those beach balls floating around the house here because after the production, they had like, I'll take a couple home, as keepsakes, but they're beach balls, they only last. So I don't know if we have any left or not, but we had one that they were gigantic and they had a silhouette of my face on it. So kind of hilarious to have around.
So there's another tease. You've got to go see the movie Church People. And so that'll lead us, that was a past movie. You're working on something now called Baby Shower.
Well, Baby Shower. So we got one movie that's set to shoot that's actually funded. It's what we call greenlit. So we've got the budget for that one in the bank, and we're shooting that one in the fall. The latest we'll shoot it in the fall. The earliest we'll probably shoot it right before summer. But it's called The Puppets of Pigeon Forge.
Okay.
And Brad Stein, if you know who Brad is, comedian Brad Stein, and I wrote that
a little while ago.
Yeah, comedian Brad Stein and I wrote that together also. And so we had a gentleman
So
come. A gentleman came to Brad because Brad and I had done a project together called
my computer is going.
"The
Let me
Revenge
get
of
rid of
Adam
that.
and Eve."
Let's try again. Okay, sorry about that. My computer
Okay.
went a little wonky for a second, but I'm back.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
talked to
the
Brad
Puppets of
earlier.
Pigeon
So
Forge is set to shoot because it's greenlit. All the money's in the bank. It's set to shoot in 2026. And Brad Stein and I wrote that together because Brad and I had done another script together called "The Revenge of Adam and Eve," which out of any, and I've written over 30 scripts now, 30 screenplays, but out of any screenplay I've written, that's the one that is, I think, the best of any of them. Now we haven't got that one produced because unfortunately it's an expensive movie, but it's a great marriage movie about the meaning of marriage. But anyway, Brad with on some stuff, come to him and say, "Look, I got an idea for a movie. You know any screenwriters?" So Brad and I worked on it together. Someone came to us with a premise. He gave us the premise, which is puppets come alive behind a church in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So we took that premise and wrote a script, and so it's got puppets that come alive on Sundays behind Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and it's kind of a magical fantasy movie, but it turned out to be really sweet and a tearjerker at the same time. And so it's funny, sweet, tearjerker. So we're looking to shoot that one in 2026. And then Baby Shower is a film we have an executive producer who is fundraising. He's raised about $400,000 now, which sounds like a lot of money, but we're trying to raise $6 million. So $3 million to shoot it, $3 million for the advertising, for the distribution. But that's a satire on the abortion industry. And so the premise of Baby Shower. So if you're a multimillionaire and feel passionate about the abortion issue, maybe this is the movie you can fund. But the premise is it's about the president of Planned Parenthood. And one day, while she's having her alone time at coffee, a 21-year-old man approaches her and claims to be her successfully aborted son, temporarily visiting from heaven. So there's the premise, and it turns out to be I think it's also at the end has it's got the tear. Comedies eventually make you cry. And so I feel like we accomplished that with Church People. It's funny, and then you cry towards the end. And the Puppets Pigeon Forge has that. It's funny, and then you cry at the end. And Baby Shower has that same thing too. It's funny, and then you cry at the climax. And so those are the films we're trying to get. Hopefully, and it's a long process, man. It's a Puppets of Pigeon Forge has been 3 years now. We've had 2 shoot dates that have been pushed back, but it wasn't greenlit when we had them. We didn't have the money in the bank. Now we have the money in the bank, so we should be moving forward with that one. Unless the next time I'm on, we talk about the embezzlement scheme that happened. But other than that, we should be moving forward with it.
And since it's going to be in Pigeon Forge, we have to assume there's going to be some reference to Dollywood.
One time we actually wrote a cameo for Dolly Parton because so many people out there are connected to Dollywood. We actually had connection that people knew Dolly, so we were trying to get approach her. I don't think they've actually shelved hope that because we actually wrote a role for her that would probably take about a half a day shoot where she's like she begins the story and ends the story. So we'll see if that pans out. But yeah, Dollywood's mentioned, and there's a role for Dolly Parton if she
There's a
wants
role
it.
for Dolly Parton in anything that she wants it.
That's exactly it.
She's an American icon, that's for sure. I can't thank you enough, Thor, for taking the time to talk to us. I've had a lot of fun. It's been great to finally meet you. And what we kind of do here before we wrap up is my youngest son, Matthew, is profoundly autistic. And through dealing with him over the years, we've learned that 9 seconds means a lot to him. He asks us to put it on his timer. So what I like to ask people who are kind enough to join us is if you could give me what I call Matthew's 9 seconds of wisdom. So just drop something on us in about 9 seconds that you think needs to be said.
Give me a second. Let me think about this for a second because I want it to be good for him. I'll give him this. So here's my 9 seconds of wisdom for Matthew. And that is there's actually been a study showing that the factor in high schools with the kids that ended up being most popular were just kids who initiated friendship first. They were the ones to first say hello. They were the ones to say, hey, sit next to me. They were the ones who initiated being a friend. And those are the kids that actually became popular. It had nothing to do with how intelligent they were, whether they were a good athlete or not. It had to do with them just initiating friendship. So that'd be my 9 seconds of wisdom to Matthew is be the person who initiates the friendship with people, and you'll find well liked.
Oh, that was beautiful, Thor. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, we're going to play something that you did that I laugh at every time. It's called Aliens Confused. So do you want to give us a little tidbit about it before we jump to it?
I was so this is the Babylon Bee, folks. There's a gentleman over at the Babylon. Well, there's several funny. There's a bunch of funny people at the Babylon Bee. I've been over there. I've been on their program 2 or 3 times, and Jarrett is in charge of their. I'm sorry. You can edit this, right?
Yes.
Are you editing this?
Yeah, we can.
All of a sudden, I've blanked here.
This is why I have so much respect for Eric.
Yeah, so this was actually put on by the Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee produced this. I've been on their program. Great people over at the Babylon Bee. Jarrett Lamaster is the gentleman who's in charge of all their productions that you see, all the videos. So, but he's also an amazing actor. He does Satan. If you've ever seen their videos with Satan, Jarrett plays Satan. He plays the woke Jesus.
Yep.
He plays the alien in this. Now he's got all the makeup on, so you can't see him, but he's an amazing actor. And so, as I've done their programs before, every once in a while he'll call me and say, "Hey, you want to be in one of our skits?" And so he called me, and it's like, if they're watching this, like I'd be in their skits every week if they just call me. But but they do such a great job. I'm hoping those guys will move into filmmaking because they're going to knock it out of the park when they do. But this is one of the skits that they did, and they filmed it, and they're always, I think they always do a great job production wise and with the script.
Well, Thor, thank you so much.
But I had the pleasure of being.
It was my pleasure to meet you.
Hey,
and we'll talk to you again.
Roger, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, take care, Thor.
General Floyd, thank you for agreeing to meet with us today.
Yes, you are most welcome. Giving you a chance to beg and plead for mercy before we destroy your planet is my favorite part of the job. No, please, don't destroy us. We don't deserve this. The looks on their faces.
It's a hoot. Perhaps we should start out by introducing ourselves. I'm Chief of Space Operations, General Foreman, he, him. Undersecretary of State, Angus Miller, he, him.
Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Amanda Williams, she, her.
And what exactly is a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer?
It's my job to be a black woman.
Well, good job then. And what is this he, him, she, her, of which you are all speaking?
Those are our gender pronouns, so you know which gender we identify as.
I appreciate that, but I am pretty good at telling the difference between the two genders. A man, man, woman. Nailed it!
That was a lucky guess, but there are way more than just two genders.
Fascinating. We've been probing humans for years, and we have only discovered the two. How many genders are there?
172. It's hard to know, really. It's changing all the time.
So, your species is evolving that rapidly. Remarkable. Perhaps while you are sitting here, you will grow additional limbs or develop the ability to breathe underwater.
No, that's not what we meant.
It's too bad. I breathe underwater. It's a lot of fun. If you threw 20 pennies into a pool, I could dive down and pick them all up without ever once resurfacing. Boom! What, no applause? So, what are these genders and how do they function?
Function? I don't understand.
Why, yes. On my planet, the female gender is the giver of life, raising and nurturing our young, preserving our civilization for eons to come, while the males mostly just mow our space lawns and make multiple trips to Space Home Depot.
What you're talking about is sex. Gender is something different.
Exactly. People can identify with genders different than their natal sex or with none at all.
But why?
It's just the way we feel.
No! It was the way we were born.
Well, of course, a lot of times they don't realize how they were born until someone tells them. Someone like a teacher or social media influencer.
And what exactly are these various genders? You have me very curious.
Well, there's non-binary, which is someone who identifies as both genders.
Doesn't saying identifies both genders imply that there are only two genders?
What's it? No, it's... Shut up.
Actually, it's genderqueer. That is the term that refers to people who identify as both genders. You know, like my nephew.
I thought that was gender fluid, like my niece.
No, that shifts around.
No, bigender shifts around, like my stepson.
Well, it can.
Well, unless you're Native American, in which case it's two-spirit. Like my cousin, who got into Harvard because they's 1/16 Native American.
Oh, I understand. On this planet, there are people who are men, and people who are women, and people who are mentally ill.
I can understand that it's confusing. It can be difficult to keep track of all the different genders. There's so many of them. There's gender vague, there's gray gender, demigender, oddygender, omnigender, polygender, and about 10 different kinds of trans. And those are just the ones that my nephew has identified as in the last month. There's also bigender, which is two genders, those genders being male and female, or a combination of all genders, including agender, which is no gender at all. So
Space
you
interjection.
can actually simultaneously be no gender at all plus a gender. It's pretty cool, huh?
The planet has no sign of intelligent life. Official recommendation, destroy.
No, please don't destroy us! We don't deserve this!
Well, there's that look. Well, sorry. I've got to say, I still can't wrap my head around this gender theory concept.
Allow us to help you. I'm going to show you a highly classified document. It's the new Babylon Bee book, the Babylon Bee Guide to Gender.
It actually helps you choose your gender, it gives you all kinds of ideas for your different pronouns or gender flags, and it educates you on all 437 genders.
And they got stick figures. They're pretty cute.
It all makes so much sense now. Thank you, Babylon Bee.
So, does this mean you're not going to destroy us?
Oh, not a chance.
Did you just watch a video from the Babylon Bee? Then you are part of the problem. I'll bet you're gonna like, comment, subscribe, and hit that little bell button too, aren't you? You are a cisgendered, heteronormative aggressor. You are perpetuating problematic, toxic ideas of Anglo-normativity.